guys, Chris Harrison here. I'm your English instructor, and I'm going to give you a quick tutorial on how to use this website. I'm going to walk you through the major parts of it. Of course, there's more intensive instructions and descriptions of the elements that I'm going to show you. So this is just to kind of outline it, kind of map it out for you. But if you're looking at the course instruction page, you'll note that there's a much deeper textual explanation of what I'm going to give you here, but this is a nice little visual walkthrough. If you're taking a look here, this is obviously my computer desktop. There's my little girl there. So let's get to Blackboard and take a look at what you see. Excuse me. Okay, so here's the home page. If you take a look down here on the left column, there is basically a link to everything you need to know in this course. And let's take a look here. So this is our home page. Underneath that is a link to the course info and instructions. Obviously, if you're watching this, you've already been there. Underneath that's the instructor contact page. There's a picture of me, my resume, and some information about me, all my contact information, office number, email, Facebook page, all of that kind of stuff. So take a look at that if you want to. Underneath here, let's see here. Underneath that is a link to announcements. Now, anytime you're on the home page, you can see the current announcements right here. You can click on those and read them individually, or you can see a history of announcements by clicking over here. Underneath that's our syllabus. That's got all the nuts and bolts, what the point values for everything are. The makeup policy, the late policy, course objectives, all the official stuff for the course. Underneath that is a complete explanation of our plagiarism policy. Now, in our department, we have a zero tolerance policy. In other words, if you plagiarize, you could get kicked out of the course completely. So make sure you read this and understand the consequences if you are tempted to cheat. I would go through and read that. Underneath that's a calendar. I put every due date in the course in the calendar. As a matter of fact, over here on the right, you can take a look and see stuff that's due over the next week. You'll notice that the modules on Poe and Hemingway are due on June the 6th. That's about 5 or 6 days from now. So make sure you keep an eye on the calendar and stay ahead on your work. Underneath that's a literary glossary. This is a list of every vocabulary term that we use in the course. There's about 39 of them. Now, this is the complete list. In each unit, there are only a select few of these words in each unit, maybe about a third in each unit. So you won't have to know them all at once. In fact, in each unit, there's a list that tells you which ones you'll need to know for that exam, but you can read them all over here. Underneath the literary glossary is a link to our discussion page. Now, when you're in the homework unit that you're doing, there are links to the specific threads that you'll need to reply to, but you can see them all together by clicking on here. And as you'll see, all of them for the entire course are in there. Now, that brings us to the important stuff, the units, the work units. Now, this course is divided into 3 units, each one about a third of the course. The short story unit is what I'm hovering over right now. The poetry unit comes next, and the drama unit is the final unit. As you can see here, the due date for each unit is listed on its title. Every amount of work inside that unit is due on that date. Make sure you work ahead there. Well, anyway, let's get in here and take a look at one actually before we do that. Inside each unit, you'll see the same stuff. Due dates for everything listed. Now, each story module has its own due date. You'll see here Poe and Hemingway are due the 6th, John Cheever due the 10th, Flannery O'Connor due the 14th, and so on. Final examination module due on the 20th. These are all links to material. But anyway, to get back to the beginning, each unit has the same thing. Due dates at the top, an initial reading list to help you understand the background material, and then underneath that you'll see a folder. Actually, let me click to student view so you can see I'll see what you see. Here's a link to additional PowerPoints and materials that you'll find for each unit. These are handouts, PowerPoints. I'll also be adding videos and podcasts as we go along too, and I'll announce whenever I add one of those, so keep an eye on your announcements so you'll know when they're there. Generally, my podcast will just be a verbal explanation in greater detail of the PowerPoints that I put up here, which are essentially outlines for lectures. So you get PowerPoints, here's a plot diagram that you can use, and a vocabulary list for this particular essay. Or not essay, but unit. So back to the short story unit. So that was the PowerPoints and handouts and materials. Underneath that, again, you've got a module for each story or author that we'll cover, and each one has its own due date. Like here, for example, Edgar Allan Poe. Under the e-content, you see here a link to an e-text, which is an online text, a link to an audio text, like a book on tape kind of thing, or a book on CD or MP3 you can listen to in the car or on your MP3 player. Also, when available, sometimes there are video interpretations or cinematic interpretations of works that we read, which, in addition to actually reading the text, which you should always do, are helpful for understanding it. Cask of Amontillado here, I actually found a wonderful video of Vincent Price, the old horror movie actor. You might recognize him as the voice in Michael Jackson's Thriller, who talks over the song, reading Poe's work in character. It's very good. And there's a lot of stuff like this. Some has more than others. Some of these stories have more materials than others. But when I found good stuff, I'll share it with you. And then the final thing that you'll do inside each module is the discussion board. This is where the bulk of our work goes on. We don't get a lecture class. We don't get to talk in a class and explain the meaning of works and determine the meaning of works just looking back and forth to each other or speaking in a room. So we have to do that in the discussion board. Each one of these is a question, a leading question that I'll give you. For example, theme, confession, or admission. You know, you read this, you think about the work, and you respond. For each work that we read, you might respond with a total of, maybe 10 to 15 sentences total for each work. That's not for each question, maybe 3 to 5 sentences for each question. But either way, we have to keep this discussion up. This is where we learn about the works. This is where we model the analysis that you will do in written form in each essay. And speaking of that, let's get back to the unit and see what that's going on. So each of these modules looks just like the one you saw with Edgar Allan Poe here, and each larger unit, short story unit for example, ends with an examination module. Now that examination is due on the 20th. I encourage you to get in here and read that before you even start, because it will help you determine what it is you're looking for, what you're trying to learn how to do before you even get started doing that. So for example, in this examination module, and each one is exactly the same, you have a vocabulary exam, and you'll need to do that first. And then after you do that, and I'll have to click back to this real quick. Once you get back to this module here, you can also see that there's a short story analysis description that you'll need to look at, and a short story analysis essay that you'll need to do. All essays are turned in, like here's the description, for example. There's a PowerPoint on it, the essay requirements, and some instructions on how to do it. And then, of course, there's a turn-in page, which takes you to Turnitin. Now, anytime you turn anything in on Turnitin, it checks it for plagiarism, and that's also where I'll grade it and submit it back to you after it's graded. So you'll want to come back here and take a look after you get your grade. Let's go back to where we are. So this is exactly what each one looks like. Every essay, or excuse me, every unit looks essentially like this. Preliminary reading, and then some PowerPoints and handouts, and then a list of short lessons, if you want to call them that. I call them modules, but they're really lessons. They're equivalent to a lecture that we would have in the classroom, and then an examination that follows up. The poetry unit is much the same. A reading list, a list of handouts, but you'll notice something different in this one. In the poetry unit, we begin our extended research unit. Now, our research section is going to run concurrent with the rest of the course. In other words, you'll be doing your poetry, you'll later move on to drama, but at the same time you're working on that, you'll be working on an extended research project that will build off of the first essay that you write in the course. In other words, you will use, for all elements of the research project, one single work, the work that you write your first essay on. And I have listed all of these things, all of these links to all of these assignments chronologically in these other units. So if something is due while we're doing the poetry unit, a link to it and a due date is listed inside the poetry unit. So this works cited project, which is on the research project, is due July 5th. That falls within the dates of the poetry unit, so that's where I put it. But again, likewise, you're concurrently doing your lessons. For example, here, Sylvia Plath, Walt Whitman, William Blake, and then later on again, an examination that models the same one you saw earlier. If you want to, you can view all the research projects in total together. And those are over here on the left project, in the left-hand toolbar. You can click on Research Projects and see the research project from start to finish. Now we're going to start it about the third week of class, but it will go on through almost the end of the semester. And all of that stuff is listed independently in here, but again, links to these materials are dropped periodically inside other units because they are due around the same time as other projects you'll be working on and looking at. So that's really the basic gist of this. There are links everywhere for you to look at handouts, to look at other links, to other materials. I try to illuminate this stuff as much as possible. I can't include everything that we would have in a class, but that's just one of the takeaways from a particular, from doing an online course. We just don't get as much discussion as we'd like. But encourage you, again, let me emphasize the importance of doing discussion in here, making sure that everything is done on time. And again, look over this course. I think once you get a little bit through the first unit, you'll start to understand how things work, and you'll realize that you're going to just be doing the same sorts of processes over and over and over again, so there are no surprises. That's our quick discussion of this, and if you have any questions, make sure click over on the instructor contact info page, and you can find me on Facebook. You can send me an email. You can call me in the office. There's lots of ways to get in touch with me. So if you have any questions, please do so. Thanks again for taking my course, and I wish you the best of luck. Signing off, Chris Harrison.